Okay, welcome to the second group call of the Power of Systems Book Club. Um, so last week we looked at chapters one, two, and three, and this week we're going to have a look at chapters four, five, and six. Um, Tiny bit of housekeeping before we crack on. I've already started the YouTube playlist. I emailed out that link. Have you all got that link where all of the replays will go?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Jane, Sam, Philip, Karen, have you got that as well? Yes, awesome, awesome. So I will upload all the replays on there. You can go there to watch them, you can share them, whatever you want to do. So, I thought it'd be nice before we get into sharing what we took away from chapters four, five, and six. I'd love to hear from anyone that took anything from last week's call or from the chapters if you couldn't be on the call, um, and went out into the world and actively played with them, like actively went away and created something from something that you took away from the chapters. Karen.
I had the client from hell this morning, and she said, am I the worst client you've ever had?" And I lied and said, "No, she is." And she refused to. She's got some really bad trauma in her past. I'm not going there. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about anything in the past. I'm only dealing in the present. And and I said, "Right, okay, that's fine. We'll do that. And we're going to talk about systems." So we worked through all of her systems of doing things and her beliefs that are external to her and not created by her. And it was really bloody handy because otherwise I'd have been a bit stuffed, to be honest, what to do with a bloody woman. But she's booked again for next week. Yay. So yeah, but it was really useful actually, just coming at it with that mindset because it is very practical. And she had these beliefs about, I don't think I can ever be any different. And, you know, those kind of personal beliefs. And I said, well, we'll just leave that to one side because systems are not personal.
Mm,
So that was useful.
mm, mm. What are you noticing that has you say it was useful?
It was useful because I'm so used to going into the why. And when somebody says to you, I want you to do the job that you've been doing for years, but I want you to do it my way. And I'm thinking, oh, great. And then it's not the way I'd normally work
Mm,
because of how she showed up. I mean, I know what needs to happen, but she's not willing for that. And so it gave me another approach, which I felt was just as, I can't think of the word, that just as relevant but different.
okay. I really I want to pull out and underline what you said there. It's like another approach and kind of what we got into last week, the conversation and certainly like I brought to the table my first reading through of those chapters where it's sort of talking about psychology and this thing. I was very much reading as a that versus that, like a kind of either or sort of like, oh, they're going after the therapist now. Well, fuck this. I'm getting defensive about this thing, and actually, what we reached was like, well, it all depends on the objective. What is the outcome that we want from this, and what's appropriate in terms of an approach. And so, what I'm hearing you say there is that this is another approach of another color on the palette that you've got that you can pull out to use with clients.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, he's not saying that looking into the why is never a good thing, but often it is a pointless thing.
Hmm. And certainly if the objective is to access action. So
Yeah.
Lyndon put it really well last week. Is like this book deals with frustration, not crisis. Like we're operating in the world of the reasonably well. Like this is about pent up frustration and just not effectively getting the things done and looking not necessarily in the wrong direction, but in an inappropriate direction. It's not that world of psychology is not necessarily completely appropriate. And I'll expand on that. Like I've got a story from this week that I'd love to share as well. I can expand that thing. Is there any more, Karen, that you want to share?
No. Well, apart from I've been used like Will and I were chatting before, Sam, before you arrived, and I've been using the systems to clear my parents' flat, which was it's like the albatross been hanging around my neck for some time, and I had all kinds of thinking about it, but I just don't think about it now. I just take consistent action because I've got a system to do it. So I'm now speaking as somebody with not authority, but at least some experience of it working really well.
Awesome. Well done.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have Jane? Was that a hand up, Jane?
Yeah. As I shared with you a little while ago, I've been reading this book for a while. I got it and just delved straight into it. So I've just been reminding myself of what we're talking about in 1 to 3, and very much picked up on the why, the why, because and it's something I've picked up before. The why tends to take us into a familiar story, and can therefore keep us stuck because we're staying in the why. But talking about where I've used it, I was working with a client who, over time, she's moved away from relying on alcohol. She's moved away from smoking. She's moved away from a number of things. But this big thing that was coming up for her was eating and weight and habit of exercise and falling out of those things as well. And the biggest thing for her was seeing that the decision making she was taking was based on how she felt that day.
Right.
I don't feel like it, or I feel like it. I feel like eating. I feel like this, or I'm stressed, so I'm going to eat. And just that whole idea that what if the thinking has nothing to do with it? What if the feeling has nothing to do with it? Opened up a different option. The idea that it's not about you failing to stop yourself eating. It's not a failure in you. There's a freedom in the idea that this is not a thing that you've got to fix. You know, you're not broken and we need to fix you. It's just you're adding this step into your system that says, yeah, I'm going to do all of these things if I feel like it. And that it's possible to have a system where that doesn't come into it. And that's freed her up quite considerably. And I periodically get messages like the one I got today, which just said, I got a coffee from Tim Hortons and I didn't feel like I didn't eat a donut. Whereas before it would have been, I'm at Tim Hortons, I'm going to have a donut. And it's just like, oh, I took that out of it and I didn't have a donut. Because that's a little win for her. She's starting to realize that she takes a thinking or a feeling out of it, that she can follow the system and it's got nothing to do with her needing fixing or being broken in any way.
Right, right, right. There's something massive that you've pointed to there that came up in a client call earlier today, and it's the difference between fixing and creating
Yes.
a way of thinking about ourselves, for example. How do I put this? Trying to remember what came up in that call. It's possible to approach the same thing from either of those, like
Yes.
fix this thing, or like what is available to me to create in this moment. One is a
Exactly.
process, and the other assumes that something is broken. And so we can want the same thing or the same outcome, and yet we can have a completely different experience of how we work towards it or how we access it, and the energy that we're in whilst we're doing all of this stuff. So like the fixing energy tends to have like an urgency attached to it, because until the thing is fixed, it is broken. So then you're sitting in that thing of like, oh, like it's wrong or it's broken or it needs fixing, it's incomplete, it lacks. And that carries a certain energy with it.
I hear what you're saying, and I think there's more to it than that, which
Mm.
is, and it's referred to in chapter 2, that thing about, particularly with certain elements, when we're not doing the thing we said needed fixing, we have shame about our inability to do something. And it's the shame stuff that actually gets in the way of taking action, because it drains us of energy. And then we don't feel like the action that we wanted to take. And often, say, if it's food related, for example, we go back into, oh, well, I'll feel better if I have a biscuit kind of thing. Yeah. So I think absolutely what you say. And when we go into this idea that there's stuff broken that we have to fix, when we're not fixing it, we're annoyed at ourselves and we're ashamed of ourselves. And there's a negative energy there as well. It's like, this is broken. I need to fix it. I've got to fix it because it's not right. And I'm not doing so. What's wrong with me because I'm not doing it? Where's the blame? Where's the shame? And so looking at it from a point of view of, you're not broken. You've just added this step into your process, if you like. You've just put in this thinking or this feeling step. Because often that's where we fall down. We add that step in. Talking about Karen in a flat, I don't feel like doing the flat today, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah, that's the step we're adding in. Me the same. I add in that step. Without that step, we can follow the system perfectly, but it doesn't need that step in it.
It's funny, isn't it? And again, that comes up again in chapters 4, 5, and 6. The system of I don't feel like it, which
Yes.
seems to be just everywhere, and like with this guy as well. And again, I think so much of what the last few chapters is offering is check if the direction you're looking in is appropriate for what you are wanting.
Yes.
And I see the same thing at play with fixing versus creating. Like the ability to fix something is in and of itself, that can be a really useful way of looking at it. A car breaks down and it needs a certain component. Like fixing is like doesn't work at point A, point B is it works. How do you get from point A to point B? Like just mechanically, it's actually a really useful, very simple equation. But then we take this fixing thing and then we inappropriately apply it to ourselves. And again, I see that same kind of thing at play with this, where it's like, well, actually, we're not talking about abolish fixing as like get rid of that language or get rid of that thing. It's like, no, that's also useful where it's appropriate with something like a car or a guitar amp or a keyboard or a laptop or whatever, something like
Or a
that.
broken leg.
Or a broken leg, right? There's that as well.
Yeah, it's that noticing where the language we use is taking us in a direction that is draining us of energy and draining us of action.
Mm.
It's noticing that and realizing there's an alternative that has the desired outcome without all of the hassle in between. And that's why I love the beauty of the idea of systems and the pointing to the fact that there already is a system. It's just not giving you the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
Is a really beautiful thing, because again, it's not going, you're currently broken, you're currently faulty, you're, I don't know, you're lacking in willpower, whatever it is, you're currently you're in lack, and we need to create that you're not in lack. If we move away from this idea of lack or the app's broken, and we move to the idea of changing rather than fixing, seeing something different, looking at it differently, we can stay in a much better energy and have much better outcomes as a result.
It's the creative energy. It's
Yeah, exactly.
the process of systems is the creative process. It's the
Yeah,
same as sitting down and putting a song together and then refining and tweaking and listening back and going, well, I'm not actually quite sure about that bit going into that bit. I think there might be there might be something better. There might be something more impactful, more exciting. I'm going
yeah.
to the creative process. Whereas fixing, that's a very different thing,
Mhm.
very different energy. And when inappropriately applied in the wrong places, yeah, people can get stuck and get
Mm.
that feeling. So I love that. I love that. What I'm going to do, let's finish off this segment on like what people took from last week and applied, and then we'll get into what people took from these chapters for this week. Was there anything anyone else wanted to share from last week's bits? Anything that anyone took and played with before we move on? No? I'll quickly share. I last week's call definitely on the second reading and then discussing the chapters with a group of people. I definitely got clearer on this is not an either or. This is not a psychology or this thing. This is another palette. This is another thing to pull out the bag where it's appropriate. And so I'm going into coaching calls with clients with that sort of in the forefront, like what's appropriate, what's going to be appropriate for how this call goes today. And I've been working with an awesome client who is wanting to create clients and grow her business, grow her income, etc. And in our call last week, we started to talk a bit about client systems and particularly outreach, invitation, and enrollment, like that side of things. And we noticed what we dug up was, there aren't invitations happening, right? That's a thing that isn't happening. And so there aren't conversations happening, etc. Right. Okay, we've pinpointed this thing. Cool. And then her default, innocently, as it turns out, was I do this. I do this thing. I think I need to. There's some unconscious thing happening, and she spoke for a bit. I was like, well, first of all, it sounds very conscious to me. Actually, it doesn't sound like the unconscious is ruling. Like you sound like pretty clued up on this. And then I saw it all happening. I was like, shit, you're looking in a direction that's not like it sounds actually like you understand yourself really well and you've done the therapeutic work, like you've been there, you've done that, so have I. It has its place, but this is about action and something that just isn't happening, that doesn't require any further getting to know of yourself or going deeper into anything, or like it actually just requires you to make a list of people and send some invitations. And I noticed a relief in her, like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. And the discussion then in that call became around, um, yeah, what's appropriate. It's like, no, sometimes it's really useful to be like, right, that situation or that person triggered me. Like, what's going on there? Is there something I can learn about myself in this? Like, wicked. Use that to the ends of the earth. But if you want to just get something done, you can skip that bit. Like, you don't need it. So that was really cool. I took so much away from last week. I learned a lot, and I've been able to go on and play with that. So thank you to all of you as well. Awesome. Chapters 4, 5, and 6. Um, I started us off last week, setting the direction, and this week I would love to hear from someone who would like to start us off and share what they took away from reading these chapters. Sam.
Hi, everyone. Um, I was really interested with the talk about commitment, and he was talking about having a client that was writing a book and the system that was in place at the time was that his client didn't that wrote on the days that they felt like writing. And then that's then, recognized as a system that doesn't work. Okay, so what is a system that works? Write for half an hour every day. And then I can't remember whether it was Steve or Trevor that it was whose chapter it was, but whichever one of them was like, I wrote for half an hour a day, and then and then I got the first draft of a book, then I refined it, didn't worry about the quality of the writing and took the thinking out of it, which is obviously a great system. And then he asked, but was some people would say, oh, but is that not just a commitment to writing the book? And like he sort of asked, was it a commitment really? Or was it just a system? And for me, it just highlighted, and this is probably just because, I guess, new to the systems idea, but just sort of highlighted what I feel like a grey area between the recognizing what the system is, and then yes, actioning the system will put you in the right direction. But what it's just highlighted for me, and maybe this is a personal thing, who as aware of certain systems in my life that I don't necessarily action, therefore I don't get the results that I want as a result of actioning that system. And now I've sort of like created it. Yeah, it just highlighted that gap because personally, there are systems that I am well aware of, and but without actioning them, they obviously don't. The outcome isn't achieved. But then but I also don't go in the other direction because you're talking about looking in directions of like, psychology and systems. But I don't look at the psychology of it and think, oh, well, why haven't I done that? There's clearly something wrong with me. I'm lazy. I'm this, I'm that. And it's the choice of whether to action the system or not that at the moment doesn't seem to be being talked about. And that's what I sort of took away as I was reading through these next few chapters of like, the introduction of systems. Yes, I think it's a fantastic idea, especially if you can recognize them as failing systems. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about other people's sort of like ideas about this sort of choice and whether choice. I was then trying to be like, well, is choice a system? And then trying to like sort of put the same theory onto that middle bit to try and make sense of it. And I just been pondering it for like over the weekend, I guess, and just couldn't work out what the system for choice is. Like, so what the system is for the big thing it's taking you away from your philosophical side. But yeah, that was my takeaway from it.
I love this. You sound like a person that's taking and playing with this stuff. Um, so I want to clarify. You're pointing at kind of what sounds like an in-between kind of space. There's a space where you're not personalizing the thing. You're not going, well, I'm this, I'm that, I lack this, I'm lazy. Whatever. It sounds like you're not personalizing it. It sounds like you're aware of, there's a certain thing I want to create. I think I have an idea of what systems would be useful in creating that. Um, and there's a space where you're not actioning it.
Mm.
Have I heard that all right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so the bit in the book that jumped out was where he's talking about commitment. So this jumped out at me as well. Today, I'd say that for me, the more workable use of commitment is in the domain of systems, not in the domain of psychology. So
And the
what?
commitment,
Hmm,
yeah, because that sort of confused me a little bit.
hmm,
Just in a the commitment lies in a system,
hmm.
but and if we're taking it, if we're not thinking about the psychology of it, what is the system of commitment? And I was sort of trying to put that, I was trying to think of a system that would commit me to the system, I
Yeah.
guess.
Okay. Can I share how I? Well, first off, I'd like to ask how you'd like to play this because we could play this as like open this up to the group and the group jumps in and helps with this. Is that something that would be
Yeah,
useful?
yeah.
Aw- Awesome. I mean, how I read that was commitment to systems. As opposed, and this is purely how I read it, and we'll open this up to the group and see how everyone took this. I read that bit like commitment in the domain of systems, not domain of psychology, is not getting as caught up in um, I am committed or I am a committed person, and how can I be more committed in myself versus like I'm committed to a system. Okay, there's let's say uh, I want to go to the gym 4 days a week. The system is on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I have a note in my calendar that says gym, so that's like my reminder system, and then I rinse and repeat that every week. And then it's like, I don't need to worry about whether I am or am not a committed person. I've committed to a system that tells me basically when I need to go to the gym. So I've committed to a system, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
That's how I took took that.
No, that does make sense, but then you've, yeah. I think I'm still sort of like working it out in my head and probably like maybe also over like over personalizing it and bringing the like I into it. Yes, but it's that the system is there and you can put it in the diary, but then and then if you don't go, it's not a failed like you haven't failed, you're not a failure, you're not lazy. But if you don't go, then it's a system, that system of putting it in your phone, for example, that isn't then working. So then you can perhaps do another system to get yourself to the gym 4 times a week as a hypothetical situation. But then, yeah, it's that like trying a different system for a different outcome. And if the outcome is to get to the gym, like is like you're sort of choosing to there's the choice not to, but still not feel a certain way about it. And maybe I'm like misunderstanding what the maybe I'm sort of like not misunderstanding it necessarily, but like yeah, it's just I don't feel like I'm articulating it very well. Is that the system is like a course of action, but then if you're not actioning the system and you're not looking at the why am I not doing these things, then maybe is it just that the system doesn't that systems like as an approach you're talking about the palette, maybe the systems isn't necessarily one of those things that works for like everything maybe.
Hmm. Might it help us to get specific? Like it is the, you've what I've heard you say a few times is, you know, you've talked about desired outcomes, systems, and then not actioning the system. Are there any like concrete examples in your life that you can think of?
Yeah, well, for
One of those things where like there's something you know to do that you're not currently doing. Have I got that right?
yeah, and it sort of related like to what Jane said about one of her clients earlier as well, that there's a food and a workout um systems, two systems. One is go to the gym 3 times a week. And the other is eat, 120 grams of protein and not eat over a certain amount of calories a day, both of which are systems. I, for the last 6 weeks, haven't been to the gym. I also have just eaten everything and whatever I wanted because um and I don't feel that I've like failed. I don't feel any like negative emotions and I don't feel like, and I'd be interesting to see if I'm giving off like a I me energy, but I'm not looking at why I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And that's because I've chosen not to do it. So therefore for me, and goes back to your palette thing, is it a resource that works for certain situations? Whereas I've got two systems that, let's say, aren't working for me, but I am not. And then maybe it takes it. I don't know. Does it take it then into the psychology side of a want, of a desire? Because like, is there an outcome that I'm not so desperate for that means that I don't want to implicate those systems enough, but therefore that blurs the line, that commitment blurs the line of psychology and systems for me.
Okay, okay. I think I understand. What would it sounds to me like the two things that you've described there, going to the gym 3 times a week and eating under a certain, it sounds like a calorie deficit of sorts and
Mm.
a level of protein. Um, what would you like right now? As you are today, what would you like to have happen in the fitness side of your world? What do you want to create?
I'd like to, I'd just like to create a stronger body that is carrying less weight so that I'm able to find certain activities that I do in the gym or at class, not even easier, but to that's always been a thing of mine, is that the nutrition side of things has always been a system that I don't really put in place or give much thought to. Whereas I can work out. I know I can go to the gym 4 times a week if I commit to it. Do you know what I mean? But I don't, but when I'm not committed to it, I'm then not being like, oh, but it's because I'm this, it's because I'm X, because I'm Y, I'm Z.
Hmm.
And so that I think that's what's the maybe it's not a goal orientated thing. It is a system. Nutrition and working out is a system, like an ongoing system, and isn't necessarily a destination place. Um, and I just, yeah, when I was reading it and they were saying, just do it for today. I think it might have actually been in the earlier chapters, just do it for today. Like, just do the gym tomorrow or yeah, today. Just eat in a calorie deficit today.
Okay, so I'm hearing a goal, which doesn't I wouldn't say that a goal or desire necessarily exists in the paradigm of mind. It's simply something that you want. You want a stronger body, um, to facilitate certain workouts and a lighter body. So you've then gone on to identify what would create that. So calorie deficit and working out. So what when you have been going to the gym 3 times a week, when you have been in a consistent calorie deficit, what has helped you to achieve those things? What have you had in place that's made sure that those things happen?
I think for me, I think that's where the commitment thing comes into it, because there's nothing is, but for me it isn't about, making sure I buy the healthy food and making sure there's no chocolate in the fridge or no like biscuits in the cupboard or whatever. So I don't it it is a for me it feels like a commitment thing, because they are systems that I have had in place and know to have worked. But then it comes down to consistency and commitment.
So what I'm hearing there is like there's the possibility that um you can continue to play with systems that support these activities. Like going to the gym, um, you know, eating in a certain way. These are activities, and you could create some systems that support that. And that's a creative process. There's kind of no real right or wrong. There's purely what works for you and what feels right and what gets the thing done. So, for example, I know one of the classics I hear people using is the non-negotiable block of time. So when it goes in the calendar, it's a non-negotiable. It's like, right, this 90-minute window here is gym time on this day, and then doing that 3 times a week. And that's a system of planning ahead and committing, like I'm going to prioritize the gym, and that's the time to do it that week. Um, in terms of nutrition, calorie counting or using MyFitnessPal or an app or something like that. There are all of these little systems that we can play with that support the action, that support the thing happening. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. And that's where I think this is what I think they're pointing to, with the commitment thing, is like more of a existing in the domain of systems. Like what are the systems that are helping us commit to what we want to have happen? So like I'm committed to getting stronger, getting physically stronger. Okay, what systems are in place? Well, I go to the gym 4 times a week. Okay. And what systems are making sure that you go 4 times a week as opposed to once a week? You see what I mean? Like it kind of it's that creative process as opposed to, oh, I clearly need to be more committed, which I think what they're pointing to there is slightly more vague than playing with systems.
Mm.
Jane, I saw your hand up there.
So I just wanted to point to a bit in which chapter is this? Chapter 5, about the book author, where it talks about identifying the current system that's at play. So my question would be, Sam Moore, what's the current system at play? So when they talk about the book author, the current system at play was, well, I write when I feel like it. And it might be that your current system at play for your gym is, I go to the gym when I feel like it, or I eat this diet when I feel like it. So it's not like a commitment or lack of commitment. It's just that the system says, oh, this is this, I'll do this, and I've got all these amazing things to do, but when I feel like it. And if I don't feel like it, that's okay too. I just won't. And so I think the thing that really shone a light on this for me was that bit of what's the current system in play. So for me, in all of these things, what I look at isn't what am I lacking, but what's my current system? And with clients, that's what I'm looking. What's the current system you're using? Let's work out what that is, because they talk a lot about it's not about just bringing in a new system and using it, because the old system's still at play. And so it's about identifying the old system, working out where it's not working, and then putting in the system that you want instead. And practicing, because this is about practice. And owning that idea of practicing. And it's when you're practicing, you don't always get it right. Like when you're practicing music, you're getting better at something because you're practicing it. But when you're practicing it, you're making mistakes. So it's about owning that idea of practice. That was the bit that was really powerful for me. Identify the existing system, create a new, identify what's not working for you in that system, create this new system, and then practice using it. And at no point in that is there a I'm failing or I've not got commitment to it at the moment. There's commitment doesn't come into it. It's I'm practicing this system and sometimes it works. And the more I practice it and the more I get into the hang of it, it then kind of becomes a habit. So it becomes easier because the current system you're using is a habit because you've been using it for such a long time. It's really easy to use. And it's your default motion because it's your current system. So that's where you go without thinking about it.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you for sharing that. Philip.
Um, yeah, I wanted to kind of share because what Sam seems to be alluding to about like, well, I haven't been to the gym for 6 weeks and calories and stuff like that. And you kind of got me thinking when you said like, well, we said like, what is it that specifically, is the system that gets you to do that? And it suddenly hit me that last 3 weeks, over 2 months over summer, I was festivaling and playing, gigs and all this stuff. Then school started in September. I haven't done any concerts for a couple of weeks. And I was like, right, I don't want to be, staying up late, eating whatever crap, just having a good time, partying and stuff like that. I want to get back into my healthy routine. And I like being in my healthy routine. And for the last 3 weeks, since term started, because I work with school children, I've been waking up early most days. Sometimes I wake up late, but whatever. I've been training almost every day. If I miss a day, it's okay. I train the next day. Eating healthy almost every day if I don't. But the system is, it's like, I'm going to try as much as possible. And try as much as possible to eat healthy, train every day, practice piano every day, work on my business and, just get into this healthy routine, into this healthy rhythm. And I'm like, what's actually been the thing that's made me train? And I'm really proud of myself, but I've just been keeping to it. And I was kind of like thinking about like, Sam, what's your situation? It's like, what on the days when I don't train, sometimes it's because time just runs out and I don't get around to it. But sometimes like, I kind of just want to be honest with myself and say like, I think I was just lazy that day. Like at what point do we say, oh, it's systems, oh, it's emotions, oh, it's, at what point it's like, I'm just being lazy. I mean, I did scroll for an hour, could have been training for that hour. Do you know what I mean? Without with being really, really harsh, because it sounds like I'm being really, really harsh, but it's kind of the conversation I'm having with myself. So, yeah, I don't know. Does that seem to resonate?
Is that a question to the group or just?
Well, anyway, I mean, I just thought I'd share my kind of perspective on it. If either of you have anything to say to that. Maybe I'd start with Sam because I'm curious if that resonates. Because I know, okay, prior to those 6 weeks, did you have like a rhythm of training, of going to the gym, or what's your kind of
Oh,
thing
yeah,
right now?
yeah, for sure. And I think that's just what's it's not about identifying a system because I have a system that I know works. And I guess in the same way that you chose to scroll for an hour, like I'd like and t like time runs out. And I'm totally there. Like this morning, I had a long drive back from Cornwall yesterday. I was tired. My alarm went off, which is the system of the alarm goes off at 5:30. My gym kit is already out. I put the gym kit on, I go to the gym. That is the system. But then I still made a ch and that's the bit that I'm trying to sort of talk about is that like you just said, like you sort of you basically chose to scroll for an hour. It's not that you put a you didn't or you said you were being lazy and you sort of put you noticed that but didn't give you any sort of personal like there was no like personal blame and you still weren't necessarily giving it the I'm the problem. But even though I think that's what I was sort of trying to say earlier is that even if there's a system in place and he's talked about a commitment to it, yes, and like Will was saying about the like the non-negotiable, but I think for me, especially like listening to Jane as well, my current system is not the one that gets me the result that I want. So I'm sort of like my current system is definitely one that's not the one that I want to be following. Oh, it's not that I want to, but then I'm worried then I feel like I get into the psychology side of it and talk about the want and the desire to commit to a system. And so then I'm not doing it. I'm not bothered I'm not doing it in the same way that you weren't bothered that you didn't go to the gym every day. And you can sort of you can have that, oh well, like I didn't do that today. But I mean, is that a system in itself? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it is a system. Like Jane was saying, like to have the system is my system at the moment. Not even that I do it when I feel like it, but do it. I don't know. It's just that bit of no, yeah. The system that I'm doing at the moment isn't the system I want to be doing. There's a system that I can see, but I'm not putting it in as a non-negotiable. And then I guess that gets into the psychology side of it too much.
I'll share what's coming up for me, which is
Mhm.
that there's only ever a constant process of creation going on. Like we create a system and we're free to create systems. We're also totally free to fuck them off. Like we're completely free to choose not to do it. And like we all do. The alarm goes off some days and you just fucking punch the thing out of the room. You're like, I'm going back to sleep for an hour. Right? There are times where I'm just not going to the gym. There's only ever a constant process of creation, creating a system that supports a thing, and we have those days where we sack it off. There's also a constant process of creation over how we choose to think about and label and use language to describe certain things. So, like I heard you, Philip, say, I think on those days I am just being lazy. And what I hear there is that's certainly a word that that could be used. It could be created in that way. I could also hear the word ebb. I could also hear the word recovery. In relation to the gym, it's like we could call that laziness if like, and we're completely free to call it that. We're also free to go, well, it's a recovery day, or there's a bit of ebb. I'm tired. I don't. I am not required to go to the gym today. And so what I'm getting at is that there's freedom in all of this. There's freedom to choose. And I'm purely riffing off the sense I'm getting, Sam, the sense I'm getting of like that in between space where you're describing, well, I'm not really making this mean anything negative about me, and I know what to do, but I'm not currently doing it. And that's a choice, and there's a freedom to do that. There's a freedom to have systems, to create them, to refine them, to tweak them, get rid of them, discard them, ignore them, as and when we please.
I think systems are more use. I think we're confused. So I realize I'm talking a lot, and I'm really grateful for this time and you guys helping me sort of like understand like more about it. But I think when I first started reading it, it seemed like systems were a way of living in the present, and sort of, focusing on today. And, they use the example of an alcoholic and how there's a system to not drink. And I don't feel like there's a real, that wasn't like goal orientated. But then in the chapters that we just read, there was the example about I'm going to be in Chicago on the 1st of May. So then I was like, oh, okay, so systems can also be like goal led. Um, and I guess that's just, a different kind of system, but I think that's where in these chapters, like I can't remember, it was maybe chapter 5, maybe. Um, the sort of I felt like the energy, the writing of it shifted, maybe, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And that it was more goal based, and it was like first of May, I'm going to be here because I've booked these flights, and that's the system, and put that in place. And yeah.
Hmm. I I think they are ultimately like we all want something to happen in our lives. Every single one on this call wants, and in fact, we are going to get deeper into that, and I want to hear from all of you about what's going on in your lives and what you are wanting to have happen. Systems is what supports that. The systems that we put in place. There's like I can't remember if it's been quoted in this book yet or not, but is it a Steve Chandler original? I'm not sure. He says it all the time, though. We don't rise to our dreams, we fall back to our systems. And that's the kind of thing that I think they're pointing to. It's like being too in the mind, too what he says here, he's like, I didn't get to Chicago on the 1st of May by loudly and powerfully declaring it and embodying it and like, I am fucking going to know. He broke it down. He broke down the very simple steps that had that thing happen. And yes, it's a fairly run of the mill like goal. I'm going to be at this place at this time. Like the people here, well, all of us are thinking like, well, what do I want in my life? What do I want that to look like? Like there's stuff at play that we're wanting to create. And what's being offered here as systems is that's how that stuff happens, how it's created. So the creation of, end of the week, I went to the gym 3 times this week. How was that created? How did that happen? What was in place? And the beautiful thing about systems and what I'm pointing to with there's only ever a constant act of creation happening. the same system that worked a month ago might not work this month, might not work the next month. And that's the freedom that's being pointed to here, is to tune in and tweak and go. Like this winter, for example, my alarm was going off at 6 in the morning and going to the gym, and that only worked for like 3 weeks before I was like, "Fuck this!" Why? What? I don't, I've now created a system where I'm making it really hard to get myself down to the gym because the alarm's going off at 6 in January, and I'm really not up for that. I'm freezing. Like, why am I making it? This system is just not the most direct route to the thing happening. Whereas 3 p.m., it's like, okay, it's warmer. I've had a bit of a day, but work hasn't finished for most normal people with normal schedules, so the gym's still relatively empty. It's like, oh, that's a system that is the path of least resistance. So then it started happening again. But it needed these little tweaks. What I propose, Sam, we in our one-to-ones, we can go really deep on this stuff, if that's something you're up for.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it was more about a commitment, not even a personal one. It was more, but that was the obviously example. But I was just like I was just curious as like systems in general, they're only as good as your level of commitment to them, was my takeaway from those
Mm.
um from the book. But yeah, I didn't want to completely focus on like my like the changing of my systems that aren't in place, or the system that's not working for me at the moment. That wasn't so much like my focus, but more like the understanding of what they're sort of trying to like talk about. Just because for me it was a bit, and maybe later on in the book, because I haven't read ahead,
Mm.
so maybe that it might be that there's a further sort of like explanation to it, because I think for me at the moment I can see the benefit of them, but I don't know if there's something that, yeah, I don't know if it's a thing. And this might be, yeah, I don't know. But that was just my takeaway. But I'd like someone else to share their thoughts, because I feel like I've dominated this entire call with my waffle.
No, no, thank you. Like via the conversation we've had, a lot of useful things has come up. So thank you. Um, Karen, I see your digital hand up.
Yay. So my thinking was, when you said, Sam, like um our systems are only ever as good as our commitment. Well, what if our commitment is only ever as good as our systems? And it didn't make sense to kill yourself after a long drive after very early morning. So your system there it just didn't make sense. So you could build a better system for those difficult days to make it make sense so that it guarantees some adherence and some success. Because I still think there's a system for letting ourselves off the hook as well. So anyway, I think there's the constant tweaking is the way around it, and to notice, oh, hang on a minute, well, that just didn't make sense. Like Will says, doesn't make sense to get up at 6 o'clock when I don't need to, and it's miserable. So let's make a system that works for me and tweak it until it does. And then it's just a question of doing the thing and not thinking about doing the thing, because if you start just doing the thing and then the thing starts getting you the results, it's a no-brainer. Like Jane said, it becomes a habit, and then it's just what you do. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that, my little thing.
I really love the flipping of that on its head. that's a classic coaching move, which I
Well,
absolutely.
I'm not a very good coach, so I will not claim that one. It just stopped me.
No, I love that. And what you just pointed to there in terms of um, progress, particularly measurable, visible progress, is how that further fuels commitment. Like you start to see progress, and it's like, well, this is fun.
Well,
And
you know it's working, don't you? So it makes sense. And it's got to make sense or we won't do it. We just won't.
I've heard you say make sense a few times there, like the system's got to
Yeah.
make sense. What I think I know what I'm how I'm interpreting that. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's all kinds of systems that you could pick, and it could be a perfectly good system, but if it doesn't make sense to you, if it's not logical, it doesn't fit in with like your morals or your lifestyle or your dreams or your, like I could have a system to carry my daughter to college every morning. Like, well, that's 3 miles. Like, no, that would be a shit system. It doesn't make sense, but it is still a system. Like, if it makes sense, then we're more likely to be aligned with it.
There's something about and I remember this from one of Nick's webinars, like your system's feeling like you, feeling kind of like, yeah, that's something that I would do. I would do that thing in that way. That just feels very personal and rather than I've certainly read this book at certain times and gone, well, I need to find the people that have the best systems and just go, I'm going to take all of these and plonk them in like directly into my life, therefore actually bypassing again the creative process. It's like that secondhand wisdom or that secondhand knowledge of like, right, this thing has worked for you, and I'm not going to think about it any more than that. And just take the thing and plonk it down, and then resent the thing. Be like, well, this doesn't. I've done this with like client creation, things that I've tried. I'm like, I hate this. Like it's just like might have worked for the I don't know Ankush, might have worked for you, might have worked for you. It's like this doesn't feel like me, and so I don't want to do the thing. I don't want to do that. Um,
And
so
then,
that's what I was
that-
hearing when you said make sense.
yeah.
That makes sense on that level.
And I mean, Jamie Smart, when I trained with him, there was just lots of, wow, what makes sense to you, Karen? And then all of these ideas would come, like, I don't know what makes sense. It just makes sense. And there was something about the Mihalgi. I remember hearing about him when I was training as a therapist, and they said, "You'll use your spelling, Mihalgi Chichen Mihalgi," about flow state, whatever that is that he says, whatever it is. But the flow state, and in the flow state, we are not present, and in that moment. I can't remember what he said now, and I'm sitting in the car in the dark, and I can't bloody see a thing. But it's when we've bypassed ourselves and we are just in and they said something about when you're at your peak performance, then what does he say? It
I
isn't personal.
find it being
It,
so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The ego falls away, time flies, every action, movement, and thought follows inevitably from the previous one, like playing jazz. Your whole being is involved and you're using your skills to the utmost.
yeah, and there's no thinking about it. There's just being and letting it life express through you. And so that to me that would be a system that makes sense if you can get into that place. But I just You've just, yeah. Oh, I don't even know how to explain it really because I wanted to say this earlier and then I had to get in the car and then I've lost my mojo. Um, but what is missing is I, me, and the mind. So again, if we start going into the why, then we're bringing the mind back in. Like, do the thing or do not do. There is no try, Yoda. Just like do it or don't do it. And if you don't do it, well, it made sense not to do it. Why is that then? Because it was a shit morning. Okay, let's. What system's going to have for shit mornings? What system's going to have for, or can I have like a Michael Mosley 8+2? I don't even know what he did. 4+6? I don't know. He did 4+2. Sam's laughing because he knows.
I
Four
have
plus
no idea what
two.
it is.
Something like we get 2 days off. And what that's brilliant because it stimulates metabolism. Metabolism doesn't think you're starving, so it doesn't slow down. Fantastic. Like that's a really good system. It's a system of reward and not pain all the time. So yeah, but the thing that I really liked about systems is that when we're taking the I out of it, then we can express ourselves fully because we're not spending the whole time thinking about ourselves, but we're doing the thing.
Yeah. Who wrote this bit? Trevor's summary. It's like, well, artists describe that flow state as like peak experiences, like that
Yes.
as fucking awesome as being human gets. And I'm sure like we've all had our own flow experiences. And it says here, well, when the I, me, myself, the little me, the little wave in the ocean, when that disappears and you no longer see the small wave for the ocean that it is inherently a part of, it disappears completely, and therefore peak experiences aren't personal.
Mm. And I love Stephen King in his book on writing. He says a similar thing about his he turns up with his cup of coffee at 9:30 or whatever in the morning, and he has to sit there for 3 hours and he will write something, but he doesn't care what it is because some days will be good, some days will be bad, but he'll just do the thing because a writer writes and he takes himself out of it. He's, the need to create something brilliant statistically, it's not all going to be great, and some days it will be. Some days he will naturally achieve that flow state, and others he won't. But he's still going to do the thing because that's what a writer does. And we could argue the same as like an Olympic athlete. I remember they're saying like, "Oh, you just won gold medal. What are you looking forward to?" I'm allowed one McDonald's this year, and then I'll back on. Like, bless you. And bless them that they think that's a treat, really. But there you go. Anyway, um, we've all got our things that we just have to get done, and the things that we have to get done where we don't give it a lot of thought thinking about are the things that just happen. So I think we'll just notice, oh, there's a bit of resistance to that. Okay. So what? Do the thing or don't do the thing. And then if you haven't done the thing, don't beat yourself up over it. Do it the next day because occasionally, we're not going to be well and we're not going to be able to do the thing. That doesn't mean we throw it in the bin.
Hmm. That's an interesting one, isn't it? I suppose, like again, the creative process requires us to tune in and to like you've said a few times there, like noticing. Um,
Mm,
um, so for example, like, okay, when do we know that a system needs tweaking? And perhaps it is that we all have those one-offs where it's like, I'm just not doing this today. I choose to see the system and completely not commit to the system today. Cool. Okay. Now let's say a week passes, 2 weeks pass. maybe not even 2 weeks. Like after a few days, then it could be, okay, is there maybe something else? Like, is there something baked into the system that's inherently actually making it harder than it needs to be? Like, how easy or hard is the system to commit to? And what's going on there? Like, okay, that 6 a.m. gym thing that I tried to do for a little bit in February, it's like, well, I can quite quickly work out like, yeah, this system is not the easiest at this time of year to it requires that will force that they talked about in the previous chapters. And well, no wonder I gave up after 3 weeks because there's only so much like get up, go, fucking go, let's get like there's only so much of that bravado you can have before you're like, now I'm exhausted with this because I have to create this whole thing in order to get it done. So then, yeah, it's tuning in, isn't it? It's okay. I'm allowed to sack it off today. That's cool. That's a choice. Then after a little while, it's like, okay, is it maybe more than that? Is now the time to tweak the system? Does it require a bit of an upgrade?
Well, I think it's all right, isn't it? To like realize that your first run of system wasn't the perfect one. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's totally all right.
Totally all right. And actually, I think that again, with the creative process, with just being really aligned with nature, is like evolution is baked into nature. Change is an inevitable part of nature, and systems are completely aligned, as far as I can tell, with what is natural and what seems to just be an immutable law of the universe. So, like, it's a part of that process. And then this other really fun thing is um the systems that get you to a certain goal, a certain point, and it could be maybe for in piano teaching, it could be the systems that support a teaching practice of 10 students versus 40 students. Like those systems are going to have to change at some point. The systems that support someone putting on 3 kilograms of muscle versus 10 kilograms of muscle, it's like, well, those systems are going to look very, very different. Same with income. The kind of systems that create an income of 10,000 versus a million, very, very different systems. And so there's this natural evolution that happens the more like the goals change or progression happens. It's like, same with the band, right? You have a band that does 10 grassroots shows a year versus, 3 festival runs every single year and, you know, however many other tours and individual shows. Like, well, okay, needs a bigger team, needs someone who's needs a TM, needs a whole bunch of new stuff. So I guess like tuning into systems and scalability, like what needs to change at each level that I'm working at.
Yeah. And like for Sam, I've been to one of Sam's really intimate gigs. What's going to work there isn't going to work when he's headlining Wembley. So, what gets you to a certain level, there will be another system that you need to incorporate to get you to the next level. It's not that anything's bad or anything, it's just that it doesn't make sense anymore.
Mm.
Like it just has, yeah, it has to evolve, doesn't it? And it's all good.
And all revert, oh, sorry, after you.
No, and it doesn't even have to mean that, you know, you're not necessarily committed. You can make it mean that if you want to, but it could just mean that your system needed a tweak.
Hmm. As always, Karen, thank you. Is there any more you'd like to share?
No,
Yeah.
gone far too long as it is, but thank you.
Awesome. Jane.
When I first started reading this book, in fact, before I read the book, when I started hearing about this idea of systems, I was immediately reminded of leadership. Because, as a leader and as a head teacher, in order to create a school that achieved an outcome, there needed to be systems. and those systems needed to make sense and be operable, and they needed tweaking. And what I'm increasingly seeing is that this is about self-leadership, and that we're coming from a place of what's the purpose I want to achieve? Where am I going with this? Not what's my goal, but literally what's the purpose? Because you, Sam, said about this is not about a goal of trying to achieve something. This is a lifestyle. So the purpose is a lifestyle, perhaps. You know, there could be a goal, but it's more about that bigger thing, that purpose, that thing that keeps you showing up for it, that purpose. And then identifying it, as Karen said something about, it's got to make sense. So if it doesn't fit with you, what matters to you, your values, who you are in that sense, and doesn't fully align with the purpose that you're going, it might look a bit similar, but not the same, then it doesn't make sense. This is incredibly true of building systems in a school. As a head teacher, I was building systems in a school. Every establishment has systems. We have biological systems. Nothing operates, as you said, Will, about nature. Nature operates through systems. Everything is interconnected systems. And the more I see this, the more I see that this is about leading yourself. This is about coming from a place of purpose and direction and intent, and creating from that intent action that allows that intent to be realized. That's what I'm seeing.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you. And particularly self-leadership. And I was just pausing there to like kind of th think on what that means for me, like what I'm translating that as self-leadership, and like what someone who is like enacting self-leadership, like what are they occupied with? What's important to them? And I think the words that really came up, or the word that came up the most is ownership.
Yeah.
Like playing with systems is playing with like how can I take as much ownership for what is and isn't working, what is and isn't happening in my
Yeah.
what am I literally creating day to day? It's like quite a radical level of ownership going on there.
Yeah, you're leading yourself. Yeah, you're owning every step of your life rather than just showing up and seeing what happens and kind of just going with the flow and not really having any direction and, you know, responding with that idea of, oh, I'm broken, or I need more commitment, or I don't know, blaming somebody else or something else, the alarm didn't go off or whatever it is. When you step into leadership, when you're actually a leader, employed as a leader, you're stepping into ownership. That's exactly what you're stepping into. And I don't mean you're stepping into it being personal, but you're stepping into going, yes, I'm showing up here, and it's on me. Yeah. These are choices we're making, and the answer and the outcomes are on me. This is what self-leadership is. You're showing up for yourself and going, the outcomes are on me. Not in any sense of I'm lacking commitment, just in the sense of, have I got stuff in play that allows me, that means I take the actions that are going to give me what I want. It's as simple as that. Have I got stuff in play that will give me the outcomes that I want? And when I saw it like that, I suddenly realized that it isn't about me.
Mm.
Because, that was a big learning curve as a head teacher. It's not about me. It's about what I put in play, not about me. And so when you can separate it that way and see it as leadership, not managing yourself, there's a really big difference between managing yourself and leading yourself. This is why it's about purpose and what matters to you. These are key things of leadership. What's your purpose? What's your values? What is it that you want to achieve? Those are key questions. And then you got that in play. You go, right, so what are the systems that are needed to make it happen? And it's so separate from having anything to do with mind, because it's just a practical structure for action.
You've given me a lot to go away and think about and play with there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Karen, is that a hand up?
Yeah, I took it down and then put it back up again. So that, yeah, no, I didn't leave it up. Yeah, there was something that I really liked at the end. It's a bit late to introduce this as an idea, but he said, perhaps all of life is like this. It's not personal unless I make it personal. And maybe I don't even make it personal. Maybe even that thought is just part of the flow of thoughts that sometimes includes the idea that life is personal. What if even that thought isn't personal? And then he said at the end of that chapter, life is always flowing. And it just reminded me of the Werner Erhard idea of like thoughts are just using you to express themselves, to stay alive. Like, so what? It's literally like they're not even my thoughts. You know, like where did that even come from? I've had thoughts and I think that's so not in alignment with anything that I've ever felt or thought or believed. Where the hell did that come from? Like thoughts just come and we don't have to take them all seriously just because they're thoughts, and we don't have to believe them, and we don't have to certainly make them personal.
Oh, man.
Otherwise, sorry, carry on.
No, sorry. I thought you finished.
No, I have, really.
I was going to say, I might kick off next week's call like right off the back of that because I could riff for another few hours on this stuff, and it will come up again in the other calls because like what you've just pointed to there, is really entwined in the fiber of this book. Effectively, again, the offering of you could depersonalize all of it. And that's very different to like never thinking again or never feeling again. Or it's just like, no, you're human. The fact that you are feeling and that you are thinking is feedback that that system is working perfectly healthily. The fact that you have a wide range of emotions and sometimes you might flip between them quite quickly. And we call that mood swings. It's like, actually, you're all right. You're more than all right. You're just functioning as you are meant to. Um, it's the degree to which, like, how seriously are you taking all of it? And this is one thing. Like again, maybe going back to the therapy and the coaching thing. Therapy taught me to observe my thinking and to be aware of its contents, whereas coaching taught me I don't have to take it seriously and I don't have to believe it, like the nature of thinking. And yes, I think that I'm not a scientist, and like we're kind of getting into, yeah, there's spiritual territory here, like Carl Jung's collective consciousness and all this. It's like, why do many people report having that? There seem to be certain thoughts that are just prevalent that most people report having. You're stood on top of a very tall building. Why do many people go, oh, what if I jumped? Why do so many of us have that thing? Why do so many of us have very similar intrusive thoughts? It's like, what if I chuck this hot tea in that person's face? Like, so many people have these similar things. So it's like, well, what's going on here? Are we the thinkers of our thought? Or perhaps is it more true that we're being offered something? And I like using that language because it's like, well, when a thought pops in, and there are about 90,000 of those on average every single day that pop in, like we're being offered something. It's not even that we're necessarily generating them. We're thinking them, but something's been offered, and then there's a choice. It's like, do you want to take this one seriously? And of course, the ones that we do take seriously are the ones that we identify with the most, or that we fear the most, or we think, well, this must be the most true about me. Like me too as well. Like the sticky ones, like the I identify with this kind of thinking, but it's still just something being offered. So thank you for pointing to that, Karen, because that's yeah, and I love this because he relates it back to, or is this simply the learning process? That is the system of learning, which we know when we're kids. We like again, we play and therefore we learn. It's like, if I run really fast in the rain, I'll probably fall over and cut my knee open. Like, okay, I learned that because I did it and it happened, and like that's not a failure, that's a system of learning. But something seems to overtake us the deeper we get into adulthood, and it all seems to relate back to getting it right, or at least being seen to be getting it right. It's about being perceived in a certain way, being observed to be getting it right and doing it well. And we have some very good systems in place with our phones and the fact that we can all film people doing weird things in public. Like we're creating a system where it's like, well, we could really cement that. Like you're being watched all the time, never fuck up, never like that's a system. And that's creating a certain outcome as well, which is like a reticence to experiment, a reticence to fuck things up, which of course, like he's offering it there in that final bit. So yeah, Karen, thank you for pointing that out. Um, I want to be very respectful of everybody's time. Jane, I'd love to hear from you. We're a couple of minutes over. Very understandable if anybody wants to go. Um, Jane, we'll hear from you, and then we'll close today's call.
Just very, very quickly, I've been reading a book called How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain. And this is scientific. And we've got a whole culture that's built on the idea that the human brain can be rational. The human brain is not wired to be rational. We cannot ever be rational. Even when we think we're at our most rational, we are not rational. So just understanding the fact that our thinking is irrational by design points to the fact that we can't believe it. We don't have to believe it because it's not rational. We don't have to believe it. I mean, the fact that we've got a whole economic system that's based on the idea of the rational human brain is neither here nor there. That's why it doesn't work. But we cannot be rational. It's impossible for us to be rational because we possess an irrational brain, which gives you the freedom to realize that you can't fuck up, really, because your brain's irrational. So you can't think of yourself as fucking up because your brain's designed to do that.
What's the name of this book?
It's called How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain. And it's by Lisa Feldman Barrett. It's brilliant because it debunks all our ideas about where emotions come from and what thinking is, and then says this is the reality.
Is it quite academic, or like what's the?
It's readable.
It's readable.
It's got academic stuff in it a little bit, but it's highly readable. Yeah, it's accessible and readable. You don't have to be a scientist to understand it. I'm not a biologist by any stretch of the imagination, and there's nothing in there that stops me accessing it.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And and it also points to the fact that our brain uses past experiences to create our current experience. So this bit you were talking about that says, at some point it changes and we flip our thinking, it's because we use the experiences, the meaning making we've created, because we're designed for meaning making. So we use the meaning making usually up till about the age of 7. And then from age 7 onwards, we use that model to create our world. So the way you're creating your world is your meaning making from the age of 7 tweaks a little bit. And that's it. That's how we're looking at the world.
And that's why, as a therapist, I always go to 6 and below to change the meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the meaning making. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a really nice TED talk as well, which I don't know if any of you've seen, but it's Jill Bolt Taylor, My Stroke of Insight. and she had a stroke, and the logical part of her brain went offline. And being a neuro, have you seen it, Jen?
No, I
Being a
haven't, but that
neuro,
sounds amazing.
oh, it's really good. Being a neuroscientist, she was fascinated because she sort of knew what was happening, and she talks through it and the understanding she had about the logical side of our brains and the spiritual side of our brains, and how they are so very different. It's only about 20 minutes long, like most TED Talks, but brilliant. Jill Bolt Taylor with an E, and that's Bolt with an E. My Stroke of Insight. Fabulous.
Awesome. Guys, thank you very, very much, as always. Is there any housekeeping? I remembered to press record, which is awesome. Duh, 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 duh. Cool. Okay, no, all I'm going to request then for next week, and for anyone watching on the replay, well, a couple of bits. Karen, you have sent your questionnaire back. I would love to see everyone's responses for the questionnaire. That is in an email that was sent out, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So I'd love to see all of those. And next week, I would love to begin bringing what you personally are here for into this. Like, yes, this is a group thing. Yes, this is a study group first and foremost. And yes, there's coaching involved. And I want to hear specifically what has got you guys here. Like, what are you working on at the moment? What are you creating? What are you wanting to have happen? Because the next, 3 months of our time together is a great opportunity to create workability around all of those goals. So yes, I want you to walk away from this with stuff that makes you sound sexy and clever and sophisticated at parties. And I want all of the things you want in your life to work. I want that shit to happen. So the full spectrum of awesome stuff that's available. So yeah, have a think about what those things are. And next week, basically, I'd like everyone to speak it out into the group and speak whatever it is you're working on, because I think there's power in that. And yeah, lots of love. I will see you all next week. Take care.